What's good, people? It's about that time to randomly relate, reverse rants, no hate. So, look, I have a question, and I want to know what you guys think about this fight. And I want to put this question out here to you guys. How much of a chance do you think Bivol has against Canelo? Do you see this as a fight where it's going to be tough for Canelo because the guy is good enough, or because the guy is in a division where he's looked good against the opponents that he's fought, but Canelo's on a different level, and because him being a bigger guy, the illusion of him being dangerous is based on that? Tell me what you guys think about that. I want to just say this. I've seen Bivol fight. Now, I think he's a good fighter. And of course, I've seen Canelo fight. I think Canelo is all around a more skillful fighter than Bivol. This will not be the first time that Canelo has went to 175. Now we're talking about legacy. It's not just, winning. It's who you win against. It's a combination of things, okay? But, there was a time where a lot of people constantly were saying, oh, Benavidez and Charlo and all these guys, they need to fight to each other to earn those shots. And, now let me say it like this. And I agree that people should win, fight, against top opponents, win. And hey, but let me just point this out. It's not like Bivol. It's not like he is in the same division as Canelo and he earned a shot. Canelo picked him. And we know, yeah, he's trying to win another championship in a different division. We get that. We get that. But at the same time, he could have decided, you know what? The world would rather see me fight Charlo or Benavidez. So I'm going to go back to 168, or stay at 168 because that's the last fight he had, right? And I'm going to fight against Benavidez and beat him. Or I'm going to go to 160 and fight Charlo. But he chose Bivol instead. Now, the guy that he chose, the cruiserweight guy that he chose, and then that fight fell apart. Nobody cared about that fight. So another question I have is, should he beat Bivol? Okay, yeah, Bivol's the bigger guy. Canelo's not the first or the only fighter that ever went up multiple weight classes and won championships. But to be honest with you, I knew who Bivol was before. They announced he was fighting Canelo, but his name just doesn't come up often like that. That doesn't say he's not a good fighter. But I'm looking at this too. Now, Canelo and Charlo, time is not on their side. Benavidez is still in his early 20s. I don't think he's 25 years old yet. He has way more time left than they do. So the longer they wait, if either one of them actually ever finally fight Benavidez, it just may be a one-sided beating for them because they may wait until they're past their prime to finally do so, if it ever happens. For Charlo, I feel like he's tarnishing his legacy. He's holding on to this belt, and he's just fighting guys. And, he's not the only guy that, he talks about complications with paperwork. And no, listen. You versus Benavidez can happen. And like I said before, he's fighting a guy in that Demetrius Andre beat. And he said he sees no value in fighting Demetrius Andre. But he's fighting a guy that Demetrius Andre beat. So we know that makes no sense. So my whole thing is, for Charlo, for Benavidez, Caleb Plant, he got his chance. It's not all on those guys. Let's just be honest. Because Canelo could easily say, okay, Charlo, I'm going to 160. I'm going to beat you. then I'm going back up to 168, or either way, Benavidez, I'm gonna beat you, then I'm going on to beat you. Either way, however he wants to do it, he could do the same thing. Because when you say that these guys should fight each other, I agree. But understand something too. Charlo has a belt as well. So it's not the first time that he's been. Look, if you go up and you went up and you fought the Russian guy at 175, you beat him. So it's not your first fight at 175. He was willing to go all the way up to cruiserweight to fight a guy. Now, if Bivol beats him, and it's the type of thing where he was able to use his size, his reach, his strength, and if he's able to beat Canelo with those things, you see how boxing work is people will use those things as excuses to say, oh, he fought a smaller guy. Well, he didn't call out Canelo. Canelo called him out. So what? Okay. Just like Canelo was a much bigger guy physically than Floyd was. So even though they fought at a catchweight, doesn't matter. The weight didn't drain Canelo, and that's not. And look, Canelo came to the fight much heavier than what that catchweight weight was. So it doesn't make a difference as long as the weight doesn't bother you and you're comfortable at that weight, and it just comes down to who has the better game plan, who can employ it. Well, my thing is, I'm looking at Bivol fight. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Bivol is a basic fighter, man. And I just, last night I watched him versus the guy that Roy Jones was training. He fought Bernard Hopkins twice. I forget his name, and I was watching that fight, and I watched a couple of Bivol fights. And I'm gonna be honest with you, he is a good basic boxer. I don't see him as being a better fighter than Benavidez or Charlo. I just see him just being bigger than them physically. I do not see him being a better fighter. He holds a title at 175, so you can't take credit away from, Canelo for fighting the guy. But at the same time, I don't think he's a bigger threat to Canelo than Benavidez or Charlo. I just think he's physically bigger. That's it. Skill-wise, he's not better than either one of those guys, in my opinion. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, even let's say Canelo beats him, which he probably will, and he will be the favorite to win, even though he's a physically smaller guy. So what? What does it really do for Canelo? Okay, he did it again, but what does it really do? You understand what I'm saying? When there's fighters that people would rather see you fight more than this particular guy. This is what when I'm sitting there thinking about these fights and who's doing what and who's left, right? So after he fights Bivol, say he's successful, does he go after Benavidez then, or does he defend his title at 175? Is it a one and done? What does he do? And I'm saying this because, true, I agree that these guys should fight each other. I get it. But I also agree that Canelo could make the same effort. If you could call out Bivol, why can't you call out Charlo? If you can call out Bivol, why can't you call out Benavidez? If you can call out Bivol, why can't you fight Demetrius Andrade? Why not call him out? I absolutely have no interest in seeing Canelo versus Triple G. And to be honest with you, if he take that route for a third fight with Triple G, in order to bring the boxing news, I'll watch the replay. Because that's what I do. I give you guys boxing news, but I don't want to see that fight. I have no interest in seeing that fight. I don't honestly want to see Triple G against any of these elite guys, because Triple G has fallen so far from what he used to be that I don't even see it being an entertaining fight. And on top of that, that's the excuse that people will use if he's to fight a Charlo or a Demetrius Andrade or any of those and lose to them. I don't see the Charlo fight happening with him because I don't see Jamal going up to 168. He doesn't want to go to 168. Um, I don't see who's left at 160 that people even care about him fighting though. So in terms of his legacy, yeah, you held on to a title. Now you can't knock him for that. You know, it's not like every champion gets a title and move up. You have many champions right now holding titles, and you're not really fond of who they are. But I feel like he needs to go to 168. In fact, that's what Triple G and that's what Demetrius Andre has done. And this is why I'm bringing this up, because the same way Charlo has said over and over he doesn't want to fight Demetrius Andre. He gave us his excuses as to why. Just like with him fighting Benavidez. These guys call each other out, they talk trash, then the fight never happens. But the same way, Canelo has said he doesn't want to fight Demetrius Andre. He called him a horrible fighter. You can't tell me that Bivol is a better fighter than Demetrius Andre. He is not a better fighter. So, yeah, we're not going to give Canelo a pass at this either, because Canelo goes up and down in weight and chooses whoever he wants to fight. So why hasn't he chosen those guys? He chose Smith. He chose Callum Lee and whatever. Both of them, right, or whatever. But he chose those guys. He chose Plant, right? He chose Caleb. Okay, Benavidez doesn't have a belt. And when Benavidez had the belt before, he didn't go to that division and fight Benavidez. And when Benavidez got stripped, that's when he went and fought after Benavidez got stripped. So, how much does this fight with Bivol really mean? Looking at it, leading up to it, okay, it's Bivol versus Canelo, but when the smoke clears, what do you think this fight really does for Canelo's legacy? And would you rather see him fight Bivol, or would you rather see him fight Charlo? Would you rather see him fight Demetrius Andre? And would you rather see him fight, or would you rather see him fight Benavidez? Because again, the same way how these fights are not happening and people are saying these guys should fight each other and have like elimination tournaments, well, the same thing goes for Canelo. You're going up and down in weight, challenging who you want to challenge, but those guys, you didn't call them out either. And it would be no difference if Charlo called up Benavidez or if Canelo, because Benavidez doesn't have a belt. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't have a belt either. And between Caleb and Benavidez, most people, including Canelo, feel like Caleb would be the easier fight between the two of them. That's the fight he chose. You guys don't want to call it cherry picking, but there's not a lot of talk about this fight with Bivol, to be honest with you. Anytime Canelo fights, it's like it's everybody. It's not a lot of real talk about it, to be honest with you. And even you're talking to, we're at different places full of guys who watch sports, and nobody's really talking about it. So this is why I'm asking these questions, and like, what do you think this fight really does for him? And after this, who do you feel like he need to go after? No BS, no cherry picking, no looking for an advantage. No, who does he need to go after? I just gave you the names that I know that we all want to see. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section. Never fall in love with lies. Remember, the truth brings hate out of people, and I will catch y'all on the next video.